Hello, welcome
Hello.
everybody. We're just going to take a few minutes while everyone files into the Zoom rooms. So happy to have you all here tonight. Thanks for coming.
So this is the kind of session where we don't see people's faces, right?
Not, but I know this crowd is going to have a lively chat, right? Right, everybody?
Oh yeah, I can put the chat window there.
Yes, yes. Put the chat window up. Say hi, everybody.
And the participants. Oh, look.
There we go. Lovely. Make sure you change to everyone so everybody can see who's here. Hi, everybody. Look at all these wonderful names. I love it.
I can still text because I'm not talking yet.
You can, yes.
Oh my gosh, look at all these people.
Oh, hi, everyone. This is a great crowd. I know a lot of these are writer names. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you all are wearing your pajamas like I am.
Oh, I was just noticing your shirt. I'm not wearing my pajamas, but I could.
It's okay. I'm representing
like a tunic.
Mm-hmm. I pulled out my gnome pajamas because
I was trying to figure out if it was like a cup of coffee, but
I know
gnomes are way better.
I know. You can't really see it, but these are gnome pajamas, and I chose them because I had a big old tree outside my window when I was a kid, and I used to think that the gnomes lived in this particular tree, and your tree in the book reminded me of that. So that's my very
I love that
connection.
That's
I didn't have any walnut pajamas, so
hi everyone. Remedy that for next time.
next time. Oh, West Coast. Oh my goodness. So many wonderful names. This is great. Look at, this is a party. This is a launch day party.
It's actually so much fun to do the virtual. Like at some point it's like, oh, really a virtual, but it's actually really cool because you get like, how many people are going to come to, Massachusetts at this very night to be actually free, whereas popping in and out, you can, people from all over. So it's actually really awesome.
I love it too.
So happy you're all here.
I know, me too. So nice to see all these names. Thank you all for coming. I think we can get started. I was giving everybody a few minutes, but it's nice to see all those names. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Casey Robinson. I am the events manager at the Silver Unicorn Bookstore. Go indie bookstores in Acton, Massachusetts. It's so nice to see all of you here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Pajama Story Time picture book launch for this wonderful, brand new, as of this week, picture book, All from a Walnut, by the incredible Ammi-Joan Paquette, who is here today. And it's beautifully illustrated by Felicita Sala. I think I'm saying that right. Just want you all to see this if you haven't picked up a copy quite yet.
Such beautiful art.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. It's a very moving, multi-generational story about love and family roots and the cycle of life. And it received a starred review from Publishers Weekly. We all know what that means. I want to introduce just quickly Joan, Ammi-Joan Paquette, who is the author of many, many books for young children, including picture books Ghost in the House and The Tiptoe Guide to Tracking Fairies, which my girls loved. Also, my favorite, the magical middle grade adventure, The Train of Lost Things. I have a very soft spot in my heart for that one, although it's being taken over by this one. And I recommend right now, in addition to your cup of tea and your pajamas and your loveys, I have this lovey with me tonight. This is my daughter's. Please grab some tissues just in case. Consider yourself warned. But we are so happy to have you here tonight, Joan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Very happy to be here.
And I'm going to make sure we take lots of questions and answers from our lovely audience of all friends of Joan. So please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, and I'll be back after we get our story time reading from Joan to ask some questions about the book. So I'm looking forward to that too. Thanks so much.
Am I on?
Yes.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Hopefully I won't get all scrambled. I have a history of scrambling myself when I try and speak. Let's see if like talking into my computer is any better than talking to a group of people. The jury is still out because I've, sort of had my little panic moments on both, but you guys are a great crowd. And so I'm happy to be here. So All from a Walnut is definitely my most personal picture book. And it's funny because possibly all of the picture books that I've written up until now have tended to be on mostly rhyming, very kind of young and fun and bouncy, a lot of kind of wordplay, and I love that energy. And that's I guess what I gravitate towards as a picture book writer. But this story came about in a completely different way. So I suppose that is not surprising that it ended up in a completely different story. A little side detour. Most of you, possibly all of you, know that I'm an agent. And so typically the way a picture book is born is an author writes a story, their agent submits it, a publisher decides to publish it, finds an illustrator, and so on. Sometimes there's a slightly different, that is to say, unless of course the creator is also an artist or is a team, as the fantastic McLeods I saw go by here are dynamic husband and wife duo who do it both together, and the art and the text. So I should say that's another option. But another way that sometimes happens is occasionally there'll be an art and text pairing before submission stage. It's a rare kind of a conglomeration of different effects. But there's another agent called Kirsten Hall, who is with Catbird Productions, wonderful productions. And sometimes as an agent, I will team up on an idea that I have, and a story that one of my clients have that pairs up with one of her illustrators, or she'll write me and say, hey, I have this idea. Do you have someone that could write a story? And so lo and behold, one day I get an email from Erin Murphy, my agent, saying, hey, Kirsten Hall texted me this idea that she has, and she was thinking maybe somebody could write a picture book, and I thought of you. And I was like, aha, having been on the sort of, delivering end of this sort of like, what do you think of this idea? It was kind of cool to get that question from Erin. And so the idea that had been put out was, what if we did a picture book, or what if somebody had an idea to write something about grief and loss, and to do with kind of, like a plant, or how a plant is left behind, or something like this. And so I thought, okay, well, let me think about it. Again, it's very different from the type of story that I usually write, but something about it really sort of called to me and kind of burrowed in. I've always loved trees. That's something that I've sort of noticed. And I did a little podcast with E Trujillo and Pat the other day, and they asked me, were there certain themes that come up in your stories? And I didn't think of this one, but trees and people, especially girls, climbing trees. I feel like there's maybe a girl that climbs to the top of a tall tree in every novel I've written, except maybe the space one. But I've always had a love for trees. And in thinking about this idea of grief, I started thinking about trees, but also about heritage and sort of legacy and the people that we leave behind. My grandfather was Italian. He lived in Como, and his family came from Italy to the US, to New York, when he was maybe 10 years old or so. I only met him once when I was, I don't know, maybe 4, in sort of an interesting full circle. When I was 4, my family moved from the US to Europe, to Italy and France. And so I only saw him that one time. He passed away when I was 10. I wasn't particularly close to him per se, but I think there's a sort of heritage. I think that Italian side of me is a side that I've always felt kind of strongly connected with. I did a little digging literally 10 minutes ago, and I found this photo, which is, I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's my grandfather. And this one here is my mom, and that's my uncle, Matt. And just for fun, here's a picture of me in a tree. That's me. And this was, oh my gosh, the most amazing tree. It was when in France, and there's like this big stone wheel that you could climb up to get in this tree, and we would be so much in that tree. But that's a digression. I just found that separately. But anyway, so long story short, somehow in this sort of, you know, mushy writer brain, it all sort of came together. The idea of, you know, this journey from afar, bringing something with you, leaving something behind that sort of lasts and that feels like it will go on even after those we love are gone. And so that was kind of the genesis behind All from a Walnut. And then Kirsten ended up approaching her illustrator, Felicita Sala, who is Italian, and who I had met at Bologna the year before. So that was an extra cool connection in that I knew her somewhat, and that she is Italian also. And that just felt like such a great resonance. In fact, the book is publishing in this week is the Bologna Book Fair. And I had originally thought, how great would it be to celebrate together? But it turned out that didn't work out. But next year, side note, it's been, the Italian translation rights have been sold. So I'm hoping that maybe I can go when it publishes in Italy and meet with Felicita and do like a joint Italian book signing, because that would be pretty spectacular. So we shall see. But anyway, here is All from a Walnut. Literally, this story is super moving to me, but I have to say that what makes this so amazing is Felicita's artwork. She is such a wizard and she's such a genius. And I just can't say enough. Like you could just spend all day just looking at the art. So I will try and do it justice as I read this story to you in this pajama story time. And also you should see, if you haven't already, the inside has a whole nother, well, it's an image from inside the book, but I love how it's got this sort of spotlight thing. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read this to you. And hopefully I will, if I were way better at technology, I could have it on my screen like all the cool people do, but I'm going to be like jostling with the pages, and we're going to be like pushing each other in and out of the screen. So that's going to be super, super fun. It's like, it's part of the charm, I like to think. Okay, suitcases. Here we go. Also, I haven't actually read this out loud yet. I mean, obviously I've read it in my head a million times, but you, collective you, are the first story group that is hearing this. I love walnuts, incidentally. All from a Walnut. One chilly morning, when Amelia woke, there was a nut on her nightstand. Incidentally, also Amelia is my great-grandmother's name, which made me happy to add there. So there was a nut on her nightstand. There it is. Ah, said Mom, it must be walnut season. Do you have a story for me? Amelia asked. Grandpa grinned. The best of stories. Many years ago, when I was a little nut like you, I lived very far from here, across a great wide ocean, in another country, on another continent, near a lake called Como. One day, my parents needed to move. It was a long journey, and we could bring very little with us, just one small bag each. That's all you brought? Asked Amelia. That and a nut. This nut? Asked Amelia. I love the spread so much. Not this one, but a walnut just like it. Before we left, I picked it from my tree outside my window. I put it in my pocket. Together we crossed the great wide ocean to reach a new country on a new continent where we found our new home. When we arrived, I planted my nut in a little pot. Times were hard and we moved around a lot. My nut came with us. Soon it was a sprout, then a plant, and eventually I needed a bigger pot. Was it a nut tree? Asked Amelia. Not yet, said Grandpa. The plant became a sapling, and soon the pot was so big that it took 2 people to move. That was when I met your grandmother. And we came to this house. I planted my little nut in good brown soil so it would grow strong forever. There it is. In this house? Amelia jumped up. In this yard? Shall we go see? Asked Grandpa. Amelia ran to the door, but Grandpa moved slowly, like he was running low on batteries. Amelia came back and held his hand. They walked together. This is my tree, said Grandpa, and that one is your mother's. She got a nut too? Asked Amelia. When she was just about your age, said Grandpa. How do you grow a tree, Grandpa? Amelia asked. Grandpa smiled. First, you dig a hole. Tuck the nut, your seed, in its bed of good brown soil, and make sure it has enough sun and water to grow. Then you wait. The great journey has begun. Amelia waited for her tree to grow. She kept the pot on her windowsill, and Grandpa showed her how to give her plant enough water. Enough, but not too much. Look, Amelia cried one day, a sprout. Outside, the days got shorter and the nights got colder, but inside the snug pot, Amelia's sprout thickened and grew leaves. Grandpa showed her how to turn the pot to give her plant plenty of warm sun. Enough, but not too much. As time passed, Grandpa moved more and more slowly. He stayed in his armchair most of the day, and sometimes he fell asleep right in the middle of a story. Grandpa, Amelia asked, are your batteries running low? Grandpa just squeezed her hand. Look at your nut, he said. See how it's grown. Grandpa's hands were wobbly, so Mom helped Amelia move the growing plant into a new, bigger pot. Will it ever become a tree, Grandpa? Amelia asked. It will, said Grandpa. All the best things grow with time. Even when you can't see them, still they grow. Amelia climbed onto his bony knee. She knotted her arms around his craggy shoulders. She held on tight. After that, the days grew very cold and very dark. Amelia held her grandfather close for as long as she could. Then she said goodbye. Grandpa's own great journey had begun. Back home, Amelia went to her pot. The sapling looked as droopy as she felt. Amelia knew what she had to do. The pot was nearly as big as she was, but Amelia tugged and tugged it down the hall, across the porch, and into the yard. Then she began to dig. As she dug, Amelia thought of Grandpa's journey. Her own tree had come from a nut that had come from his tree. They would always be part of each other. Mom came out and squeezed Amelia's hand. They both held on tight. There was her new sapling, small but strong. There was the tree her mother had planted many years ago. And spread wide over them both stood the biggest walnut tree of all, a tree that had long, bony limbs and craggy branches, a tree that came from a nut that had crossed the world and found a home in this spot of earth. It would be here with them always. One day, Emilia would pick a nut from one of those branches. Then she would tell the old story all over again. Not now. One day, when walnut season came again. The end. There you have it. That is a story of All for a Walnut.
I don't want to interrupt this moment because I feel like we're all having a moment with this book. Joan, these are my favorite kind of picture books, I think. Not necessarily always the ones that make you grab the Kleenex box, but the ones where you have to take a deep breath, the ones where you stay in the story, even when the cover closes, right? I think everybody.
It's a pretty cool feeling to read it out loud, to, and not physically in a group, but, to have listeners and readers. And yeah, it's, like I said, it's a very meaningful story for me. So it feels very special to know that it's in the world, and, to sort of have that little bit of a tribute to, people who have gone before.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because I think it's a special kind of storyteller who can take a prompt of an idea from someone and internalize it and find your own rootedness in that idea, right? Which is very clearly what you've done here because we feel it as the audience. So how did you do that in terms of process? I'm interested to know if you found a point of connection. I mean, you talked about the plants and sort of green. Pat asked a question, actually, but she wanted to know that, she said the title is perfect, which I agree, absolutely perfect. Did you know in the start that it was going to be a walnut tree? Did you think about other things?
I'm pretty sure it was a walnut early on. There's no walnut in my grandfather's history, obviously, but I knew I wanted it to be a nut and a tree. And then I went looking for what types of nuts would grow in Italy that would be a feasible nut. Originally, my title was Walnut Season, which I loved, but I think they thought that they were like, it doesn't quite have this, doesn't quite have the right connotation or something. And I really loved this one in the end. So, but yeah, I don't know how, I feel like that kind of process, the sort of idea to, legit story is something that either it happens or it doesn't. I feel like it's something that can't be forced. In this case, it just happened to be the right prompt that just sparked, not just on one, but on several levels. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly had that happen with a lot of different authors that I work with, where the same thing, and it was the right spark of an idea. And I've had other prompts come to me that just haven't had that same magic. So I think it's just sometimes that lightning will strike in the same way that I guess any kind of idea will spark. You'll be reading a book or walking down the street or talking with somebody, and I think it's really that same generative process, mm-hmm. however it comes, whether it's a how about you do or a direct do experience, so it's not maybe that different from any other one. It just maybe feels different. And you just sort of always hope for that magic to kind of the lightning to kind of jag something.
One of the things I love about this story in particular is the way that you create the atmosphere of comfort. I mean, you use the word snug in here, and that is in part how you feel when you read it, and the squeezing of the hands and the perfect phrasing, like good brown soil. That is perfection. Because if it had been anything else, it would have distracted, right? But it's just enough. And he only takes the walnut when he leaves, right? As a child. And so good brown soil is exactly right. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like the way the story unfolded and then the revision process. So did some of those things come about in a honing process for you, or did some of those arrive, like you said, with the spark?
I think those kind of, the voice and the turns of phrase was there from the beginning. That was really part of the feel. Like once I kind of had that entry point into the story, like that's kind of the way I talk. I have this weird storybookish kind of, everyday language sometimes. So, my children would be like, yeah, of course she's talking about good brown soil. She literally will so yeah. So, not to minimize it, but, and I don't like say that all the time, obviously, but I do have a bit of a weird, sort of day-to-day didaction. But that said, what really took place a lot in the story, in addition to kind of honing the story beats, I mean, in the revision, is a lot of tightening and a lot of trimming. So, once, Emma Ledbetter at Abrams bought it and started to work with me on it, it was a lot of, and that's what I really felt when I read it, was that just eliminating a lot of the extraneous beats. Like, I think there was probably more like when she walks down in the kitchen, like, is there a story here? Yes. Will you tell me that story? You don't need that, because then it just goes straight to the story. And so, it was maybe half again as long, just in sort of extra lines that just didn't need to be said. And by sort of this sort of skillful trimming away that my editor did, I think that just kind of frees a lot of that picture book, especially with this, which is a longer story. You don't want it to like sort of drag on and on. There was this one line that went through a lot of angst when Grandpa's running out of batteries, because in my original he walked like a wind-up toy running out of batteries. And at some point we were like, wait, wind-up toys don't use batteries? That's the whole point of wind-up toys. But it just like, that was the phrasing that sounded right. Like if it was just like, and I really didn't want to do, he's running it, like it sounded weird, but also I couldn't think of anything better, like just like a wind-up toy. That's even weirder. So in the end, we just took out the wind-up toy. But there's something about, well, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but that line gave me a lot of concern, because I'm like, it has to be the right kind of like, the good brown soil, like that has the feel of the story, and just that the phrasing of that line was pleasing, but sadly not accurate. So
I loved the battery line because of the juxtaposition between that and the organic soil and the origin and the roots and the sort of nature and the force of nature that has its like roots and tentacles all over this story. And you feel very like supported by that while you're reading this, like it's all around you. It's very atmospheric, I think. And so the juxtaposition of the batteries, which feel very temporary in that context, worked really well, I think.
I love that.
I didn't miss the wind up is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Julia wants to know what the word count is. Do you know where it ended up?
I don't know. I would have to look. I could, if I wasn't rude to be Googling on my computer, I could probably. I don't know.
You had a good multitasker, you are.
Right?
Yes.
Ask me another question and I'll see if I can pull it up.
Okay. Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Heidi would like to know, she's talking about the spread with the nut opening up and sprouting, which is magnificent. And she says you hit the perfect balance with the science of it and the emotion. Did you do a lot of research about how walnut grows?
I did.
Or the process, or was it more of a poetic?
It was a case. It's a problem with opening things on your computer. Okay, wait. I've got 900. There's no easy answer. I got 900 words here, but that's not the most final, and it's got all the art notes in there. So I'm gonna say it was probably around 600 when I was finished, something around that. So I definitely was poetic feeling it in the draft, like it was just about getting the thing down. And then again, similarly to when I found the walnut, I was like, okay, I've never planted a walnut. I wanted to be sure that it was accurate. So then I did the research, and then I went back and, tweaked that wording. And I think at one point too, in the editorial process, there was a question, I don't know if it was the copy editor or Emma had said sort of like, oh, wait, does this happen? And so I had to go back and re-verify, because again, or even like with the plant on the windowsill, like I did want it to be sort of like, okay, what does a plant need to grow, where teachers could use that and say, oh, hey, sun, water, time, like that kind of elements. Obviously, as more of like a atmospheric writer, like the voice and the feel of the story is not primary, but that's my launching point. But it was very important that there was accuracy, in that. So, and I love what Felicita did with the spread of the sort of the step-by-step growth thing. I think that's just such a beautiful rendition of that.
It is beautiful. I mean, the illustrations are spectacular. Even the way the memories, the grandpa's memories are in that sort of sepia, and the edges, like photographs. I mean, the way that it sort of shrinks your focus while you're hearing that particular part of the story is really, really good. Anne wants to know if there were any parts of the story that changed because of your collaboration with the illustrator. I always love these kinds of questions for picture books.
I don't think so in this case. No. Okay. Yeah. She, was, it was pretty much, kind of ran with it, and she very much like made it her own and put, I love how we both, in the dedication, we both have our sort of Italian ancestors in the dedications there.
Yeah, I love that too. More questions. I love this. This audience is the best audience. Lots of questions. This is from Betsy, did you or the artist have to research the relative size and ages of the three trees? Was that part of the consideration and the writing or the illustration?
I didn't ask her that. So that would be a Felicita question. I would imagine there was, I don't know if she was kind of ballparking it, because that's a really good question, because there really would be a specific, I don't know how much trees are sort of climate and, yearly weather dependent. If, a sunnier, rainier climate would make them grow taller, as well as, I feel like I know there's a predictable thickness, but whether you could accurately say how tall a tree would grow in X number of years, I don't know.
When is walnut season?
When you're around 10 years old, and I don't know. I did know, but I wrote this a fair amount of time ago.
Okay, we have another question from Susan. She thought the batteries were perfect because it emphasized the generational difference, and it totally sounded like something a kid would say, which I agree with. Her question is, what about when you got the illustrations? Oh, did any of the story change? So I guess, from an editorial perspective, did you do many edits?
I think the one thing that we did change was when Grandpa dies, I originally had a paragraph about, or like a few sentences about it. And I think that then our editor was like, I think it might be a little too much to like hit your readers over the head with this, for one thing. And the art just did such a perfect job at conveying the sadness, and that kind of, it's like it almost didn't need words. So, it kind of, the text sort of leads you up to that moment, but then just kind of pulls back. And so then the art kind of took over the heavy lifting of that final goodbye kind of thing.
Yeah, it's perfect. Okay, Dory would like to know. Oh yeah, she wants to know about the development of the phrase "enough but not too much." This was another one of those perfect phrases that you did. It's such a powerful theme because it's reminiscent of how a parent raises a child. So is that part of your, I know you said initially that the tone and a lot of the phrasing came to you in the beginning. So was that in the,
yeah, that was one of the early ones. And I don't remember if sometimes when I'm writing, like the one line will kind of make its way in there, and then I'll go like with the batteries, like I wanted to echo it later, and that one. So I don't remember if I had it both times in the first draft, or if I was sort of like, oh, I like the sound of that. Let me kind of have the, that I like having, I guess it's that rhyming picture book author in me. Like even if it's not, obviously it's nothing near rhyming, but there's something I think in a picture book where when you get that refrain, even completely in prose, it's almost like you're looking for that as a picture book reader, like the echo, the call and response kind of thing. It just gives a little extra satisfying feel, maybe.
It's a sense of comfort, I think, too. Yeah, kid readers especially.
Yeah, like a familiar friend.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I've heard you before.
Yeah. Heidi said, I know that you talked about the origins, but did you write all of the story before the art?
Yes.
Did you? Okay. And did you, I can't remember if you said this early on or not, but did you know she was going to be the illustrator?
No.
Okay.
Not very, very lucky.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a perfect pairing.
I know. I couldn't imagine anyone else with it. It's so cool.
Do you have a favorite page or a favorite spread? It's hard to ask that, I know.
It's so hard. I really love that triple spread with the big window where Grandpa's sitting in the chair and Amelia's looking at her plant by the window.
The one that's on the case wrap?
Yes. But you can, the way she has it, you can see the passage of the time. So it's the same room. And then so nothing really, so the movement of the people changes and the light changes, but it's just that's just so beautifully done. And I really love the walnut, the little parts, I always love graphs and charts and stuff. So that whole like how a walnut grows, I love all of them.
Oh, I kind of want you to read it again. I know we don't have time for that, but how did it feel? I know you said this was the first time that you've read it out loud to an audience, albeit a virtual audience, but does it feel the way it felt when you wrote the story?
It really does. And I've had both experiences sometimes, with other published picture books, which are a little harder to read. I know some wonderful people like memorize their book and they can just like show it. I'm never that together, sadly. But so like I haven't read it enough that I remember every single word, that I can sort of anticipate what's coming. I have to keep kind of looking back, but I didn't find myself missing the beats. Like it felt right. It felt comfortable, and I loved reading it. And just it was a nice almost like, again, because I haven't read it since we sent it off or whatever. So it was kind of, again, like that familiar friend coming back, sharing it with all of you.
I love that. We have a little bit more time if anybody wants to. I have a gazillion questions for you, Joan, but I want to give people a chance to weigh in. Bridget wants to know if you're going to hand out walnuts at your personal appearances. Please say yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Am I going to do a personal appearance? I should. That's a really interesting idea. Yeah, I'll just get a bag of walnuts. I know when I did the photo for Instagram, I was like, this is the story, refrain of my life, speaking of refrains, if I were more together, I would have bought a walnut to put in the picture. So yes, if I am together enough, perhaps I will think ahead. Are you allowed to pass out walnuts? I guess you are. They're sealed. You're not in school. Like, in school, like you can't bring a snack.
Yeah.
I feel like
as nobody gnaws on them.
I will. That's a good idea. Walnuts. And then I could have like a nutcracker and people can also or no, maybe no. But also you can't, like, it has to be green walnuts that you plant. Like it's not, it's not which makes sense, I guess, because they're like roasted or not roasted or whatever you do with walnut.
Yes,
but
I noticed that actually in the, so you can see it in this picture.
Yeah,
the green. And then I noticed it in particular in this spread because it wasn't what I thought a walnut looked like.
Mm-hmm. I love that it's accurate, you know, that she did that.
Yeah, it was kind of a genius. I mean, I know it has to be accurate, but it did make me pause and really look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like, what is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Tara Derman is saying she wants me to read it again.
See?
Maybe at the end, the people who've already heard it can leave. Those who missed it.
A little extra, a little bonus feature, Silver Unicorn, Pajama Story Times. I mean, Erin, so you spoke a little bit about this, but I'm kind of curious about this too. Erin wants to know about your personal connection to gardening and growing plants that may have informed the story. So I know you mentioned that you are
Erin.
always
Erin Murphy.
Erin Kubo.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, or the lack of it. I do have this one plant that a friend sent me, which is still alive. I'm not a great gardener. I've killed a cactus. I have an aloe vera plant it took me a long time. I care deeply about plants. I've aspired to garden. I've grown like chives. I feel like you can't kill chives outside. I'm not a great gardener, but I love trees because they exist despite me. No, I wish maybe I'm writing for like the aspiring gardener in me. I think if it were up to me, the walnut tree might not have survived. I'm sorry to say.
Walnut trees are hardy. I think what you're saying is that the purpose, the green in this book, Joan, is accessible to everyone. You don't have to have a green thumb in order to feel the walnut, the power of the walnut tree, or appreciate the green storyline in this story.
Indeed.
Jennifer has a question. This is a good question. I feel like this is a question all picture book authors think about too, is how much of the story is told by the pictures rather than the words, and vice versa. And we all know that, you know, that magical alchemy, much like baking, that happens when you put both the words and the pictures together and you get back something that makes everyone grab tissue boxes and hold the books to your heart the way we all did with this one. But I'm interested to hear what your answer is to that. How much of the story is told in the pictures versus
I mean, I think I think they both sort of are codependent. I think they both need each other almost equally. Like I can't, you know, I mean, it's a lovely story without it, but if you don't have that visual, and we deliberately like pared back on a lot of the words so that the visuals could be there. I think the best, and that's the beauty of a picture book versus, you know, a short story and highlights or something. It's, you know, it's that's kind of how you can tell when a story is ready to be a picture book is when there are gaps for the art to kind of run with it, you know, where it doesn't say, you know, Amelia got up and put her shoes on and buttoned up her shirt and walked down the staircase and grandpa was sitting at the table, you know, like there's so many things that, you know, or even the more, you know, like grandpa walked up and walked to the window. You have some of that, but you don't, you know, so much of that. What does the tree look like? How tall is the tree? What is the difference between, you know, what is the past look like? It's very, very brief. And like, there's like 2 lines devoted to grandpa in Italy. It doesn't even say Italy, but you look at the pictures and you're there, like you're just transported and you immediately get a feel for a little bit of what his life was like and that journey. Like, you know, I didn't say anything about the journey, but you have them in the cart, you have them on the boat, you know, you have them planting the tree with grandma. And so I feel like it's a lot of, I think maybe you tend to have the front story fairly strongly delineated in the text here and generally. And the art will take that to the next level, but then it will also fill in, you know, that in the way reading a book versus watching a movie. Like you get so much more, you get snapshots of history, you get the feel of the person. What does grandpa look like? What is he, you feel like you almost might know him just from seeing him on the page in a way that wouldn't be at all the same if it were just words,
Right. That's true. It's hard. I mean, I know it's virtually impossible to separate the words from the pictures once.
And that's as it should be. Like that's the ideal. I think that's when a picture book succeeds. I would imagine is when you feel like neither could really do the job without the other. That's what you want.
Yeah. Agreed. I'm just remembering, I'm going to put the link to buy your beautiful book in the chat. 1 second. I get distracted by all this great conversation, and
I will be going to the Silver Unicorn on Saturday. So if anybody does want to get their copy through the bookstore, I am happy to sign it for you and personalize it. Just let them know.
Yes. So friends of Joan, FOJs on this call, we feel free to come by. This is a good little plug for, I know someone you are supporting on Saturday, Joan. Yeah. This is our Saturday story time. Maria, I know you're here. She's going to be reading Bobcat Prowling, which is spectacular also. And is, I noticed, dedicated to one agent extraordinaire.
And it just came out on the same day, and this wonderful dedication. I feel like I want to frame the dedication. It was so delightful.
It's great. I loved it. It made me smile. So anyway, you're welcome to come to Maria's event on Saturday at the store. And for anyone else who wants to order a copy, maybe online, maybe you're on the West Coast. I know we have some West Coast folks here tonight. You can also order online at Silver Unicorn Books. I put the link in the chat, and you can also request it personalized. And Joan will be signing on Saturday, so she can do that for you. Just make sure you put that in the instructions.
I need to think of a catchphrase because I haven't signed a copy yet. So whoever's the first one, you have to write like you're sort of special. That I have one for all of the books, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So I better do some.
We'll have some
for Saturday.
We'll have some scrap paper, so maybe you can try a few.
Well, you got to know what to say is the problem. I will be on that.
That's perfect. Well, I think I'm looking at the time. Wow, that went fast. I think we're wrapping up. I just want to ask, do we have anything else to look forward to coming down the pike from you? Anything you can talk about? I guess I'm sure there are things in the works, but
yeah, I don't have anything. Well, I another young thing it's way out. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. One hopes.
Excellent. Well, we'll be anxiously waiting for another addition to the Ammi-Joan Paquette section of the bookstore and our libraries. But once again, I mean, I can't get enough of this cover. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Joan. Such a treat
for
to have
having me. And thank you all so much for coming. I know there's so many demands on our time, and it means so much to me to share this moment with you. And it's so fun and extra special that it gets to be virtual, and there's probably most of you are far from here. So thank you. And you all are amazing.
And thank you all for being so supportive of authors and illustrators and independent bookstores. We really appreciate it. So we'll see you all on Saturday, except maybe the West Coast people. You're excused. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.